Hello, everyone. Another month passed by, and we are again here in umbraCoffee without any episode. umbraCoffee.
We don't count them anymore. We don't know what number it is.
We lost the count.
Yeah, it feels like ages since we last spoke, Marcin. I was just going to check when the last umbraCoffee was because, it's very rare that we do an umbraCoffee on the very last day of a month anyway. And I think in April it may well have been on like 20 something. So we, it was 26th. A lot's happened since then.
But May is just before June. June is a very important month. There will be couple umbraCoffees next month, so we will balance it out, right? So it will be fine. It will be fine. But yeah, today we are joined by an amazing CTO straight from Umbraco HQ, Philip. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. I got my finally got my umbraCoffee mug here with actual real coffee in it, so I'm good to go.
It's funny. I use mine as a pen pot.
It just proves how multi-purpose they are, right? But I'm always smiling when I'm seeing them across the web because they're like an Easter eggs amongst the Umbraco community. They're used pretty often by many people. And yeah, the next month we'll be trying to get them out and deliver for some of the people who still are missing them.
Please, if you're going to Code Garden and we owe you a mug, please find it.
Find us. We'll be hiding everywhere, but try to find us, and then we'll deliver it, of course. Cool, guys. How the last month went for you? It was probably a chilly, very peaceful time wherever you've been, right, guys?
Yeah, far from it for me. But, I guess Philip's probably worse for you.
Well, I have a really good team, so they take care of most of the work. But I guess, I think we all felt the collective heart rates drop a little bit yesterday when everything was released and everything was working and stuff. It's been a little more busy than usual.
What happened yesterday? I was having the day off. What happened?
Yeah, so yesterday we released the latest major for umbraco 14 with lots of new cool stuff in it. It's probably Bjarke in his internal speech yesterday actually said this is probably the biggest release of umbraco ever.
I think I've said this on umbraCoffee before. I've at least said it in some places. If you go and look at the back office repo, because obviously there's now a separate repo, it's got about 15,000 commits in it. And if you look at the overall core repo, it's got about 45,000 commits in it. And that is the life of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So he's probably
including all the old back office, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole rewrite and everything. You can't really judge it based on commits. I think this was described before as half of the v7 Bell back office was just like one commit by pair at one point. Things have been done a little bit more properly this time, but it does demonstrate somewhat the scale.
Yeah, and I guess UI library is not even in that, right? So it's probably even more if we count that.
Yeah, that's crazy. But first of all, big congrats and kudos to everyone on making this happen. It was the big day. I've seen, even though I was off yesterday, I've seen a lot of excitement around the X-Twitter sphere, however it's named these days, and a lot of great messages and kudos to everyone involved. It was tough time, I believe. It was a big busy period in your team, as you've mentioned. So how it looked from the other side, Phil? Tell us more about it. I will share some of the blog posts about the release itself, because we've been talking about RCs, we've been talking about the functionalities. We know that not everything is yet ready. So tell us more about the behind the scenes and how it looked from the team perspective there.
Yeah, this is, I think we did the first RFC for the new back office in December 2020, right? So it's like 3.5 years ago. So it is a pretty huge undertaking, and we hired Jakob 2 years ago to, or 2.5 or something like that, to actually get started on it. And him and the team, they've really done a massive amount of work in this. And of course, at some point in time, you just gotta sit down and say, here's the date, now we ship. Because whose law is it? Parkinson's law, or however, which is, it always takes as long as there is left.
Yeah.
So at some time we just need to choose a date and then get it shipped. So it's out. It is really good. There is definitely more. It's definitely more bumpy than we've been used to from Umbraco, but it is a complete rewrite of one half of the equation of Umbraco, which I mean, of course, with the backend being the other one, right? So it is a pretty massive undertaking.
Arguably more than a half, because you've done all of the sort of API, the back office API, and you've done the back office UI, and then a bunch of service layer improvements and stuff alongside it as well. So and even then, concepts that have not really been changed in a long time. Let's talk, say, property editors. They've remained more or less the same since 7, if not before. Those are now different too. You've got these data editor, data UI. I don't know the terminology.
yeah. We've split the data structure or the data behind it from the UI, so you could reuse one without reusing the other one, or without having to duplicate the other one. So it's like the great example of that is that you might have 2 different rich text editors, and they should probably share the same, definition on the server of what the data model is.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but screw it. It's what we do here. Say what I think. There was a chat recently about the fact that, say, swapping out the RTE at some point might make sense, because licensing-wise, TinyMCE is a commercial product. They are friends of Umbraco, and they've kind of been gracious enough to extend free use of the TinyMCE product for quite a while. But then there's reasons from like a software licensing point of view that you might want or need to swap out TinyMCE for, say, the commercial one, and that's
exactly. So they
are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to plan for, and make sure that the data that we store is not too tightly coupled to one specific thing. Because I mean, you're right. Tiny announced that with the next major, or the whatever is the new major, I guess, they're changing the licensing model of the open source project to a less free. Or less, or more restrictive one, and that might not be the best fit for all of our customers. But by doing this, I think eventually Tiny will become a package that you can install and choose to use, or there'll be a different one.
Yeah, that's which is cool. Makes a lot of sense. That again, from a concept point of view, like Umbraco could sort of handle that in the same sort of way. Like, makes a lot of sense. That's cool. I think there is no doubt that this is a massive technical achievement. Like as you said, it's a rewrite of everything from not being tied to a framework to, well, arguably the language you've written the back office in too, because it's now all TypeScript, and just using modern front end processes.
It's so good. I mean, the TypeScript support, the IDE support that you get now, that when you're just building if you're building an extension on top of back office, you get like nice IDE help like you would be used to from the server side, right? Because we actually know what properties are there and what methods are available, and what the signature of those are, and it'll hopefully make it easier and to build great stuff, and make it more stable at the end of the day.
So a question on that then, because I've heard it said a lot that, so whilst the back office is built in TypeScript and Lit, and you're doing all these great things, as an implementer, we don't have to care about that, because like before, we were wedded to Angular and we had to use Angular. And I agree to an extent, but so I wanted to get your thoughts on this. As a package developer, it is an incredibly painful experience if you don't go and use TypeScript and Lit. So there does have to be some care about what the back office is built in, because you get all of the IntelliSense, you get kind of the better.
But the cool thing is, I think sorry for interrupting. I think I know where you're going, and I think the cool thing is that the IDE support actually works even if you're not using our tech stack. of course, I mean, even if you're writing in JavaScript, VS Code will still read your TypeScript definitions and give you help. It's not gonna break your build and stuff like it would if you were actually using TypeScript. So you don't get all of it, but I think you get a lot of it still. But yeah, I mean, we chose Lit because we think it's really great, and I think a lot of people will choose the same. Also because that means they can use a lot of our source code as inspiration. And
my question really was, yes, we don't have to care, but does it just make sense to tell people to use TypeScript and Lit? Because that's what you're and it will give the best developer experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's that balance where we really don't want to, start making any Lit specific things the API, because we don't like being burned with AngularJS in the past. Like, we want to make sure that we got a clear line between what's implementation and what's API, and you should only care about the API. And if you choose to use the same implementation as ours, that's fine. But one day we might change our implementation, and the point is that now we should actually be able to change it, part by part, and it shouldn't break anything for you.
I recall from some conversations with Jacob or maybe Niels that you have various wrappers around Lit anyway. So whether it makes, I can't remember what they said, whether it made sense for us to pull our own version of Lit in, or depend on Umbraco's one and depend on the wrappers. But at least the abstractions are there too. So if you change something, then our abstraction changes, but that's no different to C#, I guess. We're reliant on your interface.
But we spoke with a couple of the package creators, of course, and Richard Sotterman was here, and a couple of other ones who are kind of right now dealing with it. And it's not the easiest path, of course, for someone who got used to doing things, especially in the more backendy ways. And we talked about it, and we are both backenders by heart as well. Right?
It's been nice to see now that Richard and Marcus and Kevin and some of the old timers, they're from what I hear from them, at least, there's definitely a learning curve, but then when they actually get into it, they really I think, to me, it's a testament that we're actually winning what we want to win with this, like a great developer experience, all of this. But yeah, I mean, for sure, when you're used to working in a certain way and all of a sudden that way is changed, not just a little bit, but pretty significantly, it will take some time for everybody to get used to.
For sure. Like I was able on Saturday last week to knock together a moderately complex Umbraco package in 13 in a couple of hours, let's say. And every time I've tried to do anything in 14, it's taken me much longer. Again, there's a familiarity thing there for sure. Yeah. But there is no doubt that the developer experience is better. I posed the same question I said a minute ago in our chat earlier, that like there was no way I would choose anything other than using the same tech stack as you are, because the developer experience is just that much better. And it is compared to Angular. Like, I know there's been efforts before. Sure. Kevin made his Angular components thing. It was a VS plugin maybe that auto-completed all of the different Angular components that are available. But it's never really been discoverable. So
yeah, and the issue with all of that is that since it's not coming from the source, it'll always be lagging behind, right? This actually comes from the implementation, right? So it'll always be up to date.
It's always easier to share something what you use on daily basis, right? So that's instead of us or package creators copying markup, it can be inherited from something what is built and used. So yeah, I can think that it will be widely adopted, and it's just a matter of getting used to things. But then the replacement of framework might be interesting one in general. But of course you are just releasing the major version, so it's not close in time that there will be another major with another huge change like that, I believe.
No, that's my bigger picture question. What are you going to break next? Because it feels like 8 was the roadmap to, cleaning up to get to core. 9 was net core. 10 was a stabilization of that. 14 is now a whole new tech stack as well. But it doesn't feel like there's anything left to break. So.
Yeah, I think I feel I look at it. I think I see the same kind of pattern. I look at it maybe from a little bit different approach. Like we've now gotten to a good state on the server side, and we've now with 14 gotten to a good state here. And from here on, it's gonna be a lot more evolution and not so much revolution, right? So we don't have any, comparable larger things like that in the plans.
Cool. That's good. That's good to hear. Because as much as you know, it would be good to stay on top of tech, and it sounds like we're on the sort of bleeding edge or the best practice, at least at the minute. So we'll probably be that way for a while. But it would be nice to have a period where we're not, you know, within 5 years doing three major overhauls.
But
Yes.
I wanted to say that we, of course, touched that at the beginning, that there are still some functionalities that are known, let's say, that still need to be worked on. So it's not that there's nothing to maybe not break, but it's a lot to adjust, fix, and amend, right? So that was the list that was shared somewhere on Stacks, if I understand correctly. That's and I think this is very useful for someone who is coming from version 13. And we didn't mention that yet. There's a new download page, right? That's exposing the way of, and it's called download, and then it's the installation. And I was literally talking. Yeah, I was talking with someone yesterday or the day before, like, okay, so it's download or install. Why it's download page when you're installing stuff? But yeah,
I think everybody's just looking for the download button, right? Again, there is none to no longer, so it's
Yeah. This page,
but I mean, it's the same thing in cloud now, that you get the same choices, right? Do you want to have the long-term supported version, or do you want the bleeding edge one? And there's, you know, good choices, good reasons for both, and I think we will see, as we did with 9, that, and as we did with 8, also, like, that adoption for these major rewrites are slower than for the easier ones, and I think that's to be expected.
Just use Umbraco, or, you know, get started or something like that. That could be probably. Let's see.
This page layout hadn't changed at all, like, ever, really.
No, I think it's no secret that for the last, I don't know, since I joined Umbraco 4 years ago, like, we've been trying to get rid of our, right?
For sure. but this page, it was always, I think it was only recently, maybe with the Net Core release, that someone finally removed the web matrix. Get started on like 6 and 7 is the way people were doing stuff before. Like, the layout's not changed. It's great to see this, and the signposting is clear to users. Like, it makes sense.
It still might be on some web platform installer things somewhere. But coming back to this, is of course there are things that needs to be worked on, and there is a lot of issues and fixes still raised and plenty to fix. So you are not finishing with this release, I believe, and
we're not sending anybody on holiday yet.
No, I thought that the June is off.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
so what's next? What's next big thing? What's next bigger thing? I would say, what's the priority now to work on for the team?
Well, I think we'll see that for the miners for 14. So I think there's 3 or 4 miners planned right there every 6 weeks. I think we'll see filling in these gaps that's, you know, in the top bullet list that you showed, and then, you know, there's probably going to be a million bug fixes, right? Like I mean, most bugs are found when people are actually using the software, and that's also a reason why we just need to get it out there and get it in front of people, because otherwise we'll never find them. The old Angular JS had 10 years of bug fixing, right? So of course there'll be more here. As for like the bigger headlines and for looking at 15, I think getting ready for you know, block level for, you know, enhancing more on the block level variations, reusable blocks, all of that kind of stuff. All, you know, for all of that to happen, we need to change how we store the data and how we work with the data for the blocks, and I think there's a lot of that I think the backend team has started to work on, and I think that will be hopefully some of the stuff that we can land in 15.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's something people have been asking for years. I think even at the point when the block editor was conceptualized at the retreat back in 2018 or 19, like I was saying this at the time, it makes no sense to have a brand new editor in the CMS that doesn't support one of the flagship features, which was variants. Like, come on, let's put that in. And too complicated, understandable, and it does look like it's being done in the right way now, at least, not completely hacked in.
But
I think so.
what you've put onto the links as well. This is the breaking change open ticket that is going to be discussed and addressed. Commented last week ago, so and already predicting breaking changes for another major. It's really cool to see that. And the second one is getting all services versus good multiple. That's interesting. I haven't seen that.
This one's at least a little more specific. The block one just says, we don't know what we're going to have to break yet, but something on this class. This one's actually saying we're introducing a whole new method for the surface layer, which we were just talking about is an evolution of that. Evolution, not revolution of the product. You've not ripped the whole thing out. You've just put a better way of doing stuff in there. You'll start using that over time, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So yeah, that's the released version, and we've mentioned the packages, and there was also a discussion about packages because some of them already are ready. And we saw yesterday, like Marcus released his dashboard package immediately after the version 14 was released.
Did you see if he beat Kevin to it, or who was first?
I didn't know there was a battle, but yeah, they were definitely competing. Who released it first? But he was observing the release from the inside. I believe he was ahead of.
This list is slightly inaccurate.
Yes.
So I know, for example, my super value converters package does not. There was an issue with me targeting too high a dependency, and now I can't get rid of it from here. So it's been fixed. It's been fixed. There is a 4.1.1 that removes the 14 targeting. But yeah, and all of Heather's Dragonfly packages there are the same situation. They don't work on 14. But I saw Jevon did purposely release Slimzy, for example, and it is for 14, and he's celebrating exactly 10 years of that package, which is really cool to see. Kevin, of course, out the gate with stuff ready. Seb was ready to go with the Hangfire thing long before 14 was even out. So yeah, that's cool too.
And Sebastian also mentioned that Warren has 2 brand new packages as well.
Yeah, and I know for sure that Bjarke's OpenStreetMap package is in there as well, because now I'm an official contributor. And I mean, at least that proves that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Right?
It's a dependency of the starter kit. So like the fact that it's not shown here, but that is odd.
Yeah. I mean, and if you look at the detail page for it, it says supporting 14. So I don't know what. Seems like there's something wrong with that sorting algorithm right now.
Yeah. Or maybe the index needs to be rebuilt.
Yeah. I'm sure someone will fix that.
Yeah, but that's fine. And of course, as usual, probably this is the huge step towards wider adoption, because if there are packages, there are users, there are extensions, there are people building it, and everyone needs to go through. Not everyone, but every package creator and every package owner is considered the walking through this refactoring towards the new back office. And I think
even my super value converters package, which has nothing to do with the back office, doesn't work because the property editor aliases have changed. So I was previously targeting like the multi-node tree picker. That's not a thing anymore. It's called a content picker, and it just does everything. And nested content was removed, and I had something for nested content in there. So it literally does not work, even though it's a .NET package, and it's going to be easy enough to update and make it work. But like, yeah, every single package is going to be affected in some way here.
Oh. Yeah, and Sebastian was that fast that he already updated his blog to run on v14. So that's
nice.
Yeah,
well done, Seb.
These people share your journeys, because we usually highlight everything what is happening, and it's both happy stories, happy paths, and sad stories as well. It's about reality. We know how reality looks. It's from red to green all of the time, right? So things need to don't work to then work again at some point. So that's good. Paul also mentioned that he updated his package scriptwriter. And he added the option to see the LTS versions as well in this packages. So that's really cool as well. So I believe I've used it recently because I needed to build some component of libraries, and it was really cool to just do it from the UI perspective. And I was too lazy to just.
This needs to just get into the marketplace somehow. I've said this before. Like we just need a way in the marketplace of sort of shopping around, add, then you get a little list and it gives you all the install scripts. It would be awesome. Yeah, I'm sure
that would be nice.
Paul would be willing to collaborate with the marketplace team to get that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and there was one more story that that was highlighted. It was URL tracker. That's the package that was kind of migrated over, and it's still being worked on, I believe, right? Or it's the new one.
Yeah, it's a very old package from the V4 days, but Dennis is tasked with kind of reinventing it. He's been rethinking the UI and coming up with a more Umbraco-ified way of doing things, because before they shipped a lot of their own UI. Now he's trying to reuse stuff. It looks good. Kind of been sharing his stories there on.
Yeah, we need a lot of the stories to feel inspired and reuse the approaches taken there. So that's the packages that we've been walking through. Anything, Philip, from your perspective, that you know that will be released or will be soon available? Any insider news?
I mean, I think a lot of people will be looking for contentment when they're looking at in the marketplace. Of course, Lee is on payroll with us now, so he's been kind of busy with building 14. But it's what I hear is that he's considering maybe releasing some of the property editors as like standalone packages, and I think the data list is probably the most sought after one. At least that would be the one I would be looking to install the first, and I think that's coming along pretty nicely. Hopefully, I don't know if we have something for Code Garden or something that would be nice.
That's in 11 days, so
plenty of time.
We'll talk about it. But we haven't mentioned that when we were going through the blog post. But of course, the Umbraco's owned packages, commercial packages like Form, Deploy, Workflow, and Commerce, they're all released in alpha versions for before.
Yeah, I mean, someone else that has been working really hard is, of course, Andy and the entire commercial packages team, having to rewrite everything on top of something that was a moving target with super unstable APIs, and like they've really felt the pain of being first movers and building larger projects on top of it. So I mean, super pleased that Forms and Deploy are out, so we can put it in cloud. And I mean, both Commerce and Workflow have release candidates and are out pretty soon.
And UI Builder later in the year.
Yeah, UI Builder later in the year. Yeah.
Does that mean if I start a new project now on cloud standard and above, I don't get UI Builder bundled anymore?
I think we never bundled it. I think you can ask us and we'll give you a license, but we never bundle it because it's too opinionated to just give everybody.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool, very good. I was going to ask about versioning, if that's allowed.
Sure.
Because it's a whole minefield, isn't it? There was all the discussion before about when the version was moved to this LTS STS approach, which I think everyone's on board with at this point. Maybe at first it felt a bit weird, but it just makes sense now. So there was all this talk, though, of we need to stop talking about version numbers. And here we are, 3 years later, still talking about version numbers. And then we've had, of course, 14 in the blog post from yesterday, 14 alphas for Commerce and Workflow. Thank you. Sorry, I always call them. You're lucky I didn't say vendor and plumber. Honestly, I do it on a daily basis still. We've got alphas for those, but then in theory those are launching soon. So what's designating something there as an alpha versus ready to launch in 2 weeks? For me, alpha feels way off. And then we come back to the CMS where we had kind of alphas for a long time, a very short, quick beta, and then 5 release candidates in the space of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe it was, including
6
one.
weeks, but yeah,
the day before launch, which to me doesn't feel like a release candidate anymore. It feels like
that's what they call what's it called, the gold master. So it's like the master. the only thing changed between RC5 and the final thing is the version number, right? So that's just a final test to see that it works in cloud and to see that it works everywhere, right?
Except it was a load of bug fixes in it. So it was like
but between 5 and
those
between 5 and the final one.
My question was more, what are the labels for? Because it doesn't make sense to me at the moment.
I mean, I think it's the honest answer is It's a little unclear. I agree. We have a plan that we stick to, which is RCs 2 weeks before on minors and 6 weeks before on majors, and that's basically the same point as I was saying with the Parkinson law, that we needed to ship at a time, and that means we need to ship a release candidate at a specific time. And to be honest, I mean that having called that a beta whatever number instead would probably have been more correct from what's actually in its standpoint. So that was the other thing that took precedence in that. I think whether like when what is what, I think that's something that there's a lot of discussion for. I think there's no, at least there's not, it's not like semantic versioning or something where there's a specific rule set for what goes where and what's what. I think that's not the case for what's an alpha and what's a beta. And we had the same discussion when we did 9, right? We shipped 9 and called it a beta, and there was still some features missing, and we called, and so there was
I
think
to me the release candidate label implies I can go ahead and like build a site on it, and it should be feature complete, but there might be some bugs. Whereas until RC4, you couldn't legitimately do that, and arguably there's still stuff now that's missing from 14, as you've documented, that again feels, I don't know, the labels just don't sit right with me, and I know a load of other people too, because people will go out and potentially start building stuff on it or testing them and finding they can't do stuff, so that's a waste of everybody's time. So I just wanted to know sort of what the thought was, and again the jump from on commerce and workflow, jumping from alpha in theory straight to release candidate feels odd too. Like, should there be a beta in the middle there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, it is that for us. It is that trade-off of wanting to get something out there. What we see from the numbers is that very few people use the alphas and betas. When it's RC, it's a lot more, but still. Release time is where it actually happens. The actual trials of RC is still relatively small compared to the stable launches.
For sure, I know for myself, I tried out RC 2 and 3 and went not for me, and then tried out 14 yesterday, and it is more polished. But I wouldn't have attempted to try each of the RCs probably based off of need and time and whatever else. And you can just see that in the numbers there. There's 5 downloads on each.
I was checking the numbers, and I was surprised that for all the major versions there was 5 RCs.
I think
that's a lot of testing.
Well, I mean, we ship majors, as I said. For majors we ship RCs 6 weeks ahead, and typically we do 1 RC every week. So I think that's the reason why it's typically like that. But there's definitely exceptions to
that. Like 3 in a week.
Yeah,
but we've all been there as well, building software like this. We all know that mad rush to the end, and
everything is ready after. Always, everything is ready a couple of weeks ahead.
We've done 90% of the project. Just got to do the other 50.
Yeah,
26 years old developers. You probably remember this screenshot, right? Or this picture. But Philip, you mentioned before.
14. No,
You mentioned before we went live about the contribution and the people support and help, and I think this is maybe a moment to also shout out to all the people who helped you and generally tested out the RCs, because we often talk about it here as well on the umbraCoffee, that RCs are for testing, people need to test, but we also know how hard it is to find time to really just straight out of the normal routines and firefighting just to grab an RC or beta and alpha and just play around, and a lot of people did that, right? Still, and a lot of people contributed by this way, right?
Yeah, we're very, very happy with that. I mean, for big releases like this, it can be like extra difficult for community people to help, because where to start and like how do I even download stuff and make it run on my own machine, and how do I even do stuff? We are, I mean, when we look at the number of contributions from to code to commenting on RC or RFCs and bringing in issues and stuff. It's a pretty good number. I made a slide for the keynote for Code Garden with all the names on it, and it makes me happy inside to see that there's really a lot of people in a world where open source has a hard time, and actually getting contributions other than 5 years ago is hard for projects where actually like the trend line is still going up for Umbraco, and I think that's really positive.
So, question then, contributing to 14 now. 14's actually been the default branch on the GitHub for a little while, maybe a couple of months now. So that's the place that people contribute to. Is 13 still open to contribution, given that it's an LTS, or is that semi-closed off now? And is there anywhere?
As long as it's, so that's when versions that are supported are open to contributions in the way that they're supported. So since 13 is a long-term support and it's currently in what we call the support phase, it's open for contributions to with bug fixes and security fixes. And once it goes into the security phase, we do all of that and like we do the security fixes when they're happening. There's a whole process for that. But I mean, all new features has to be on 14 and beyond.
I guess we're not going to see any new features for 13, at least back office ones, because, well, unlike say before, where I can't remember the exact one, but was it 12 introduced the block grid, and then 13, sorry, and then 10 had it added retroactively. We're not going to be seeing anything like that, I'm assuming, because
we don't have any of that planned, at least. I think that's the exception to the rule, is if we can backport something to make it easier to migrate, we might consider doing that. But we're not adding features just for feature's sake to older versions.
Makes sense. Convince people to upgrade as well.
Yeah,
that's good. And so the issue tracker as well, because there's now two repos. There's the back office repo, and then there is the CMS repo. So where should someone be raising an issue with the back office? Is it still the CMS repo? I guess that's the combination of the UI plus the APIs.
Yeah. Well, I'm honestly not sure about that.
Somewhere.
I think at least for the foreseeable future, whether you post it on one or the other is equally fine. And I think eventually we'll have to figure out where to do what. We've discussed it a lot. Also, should it be two repositories or not? And
because it's also the case that if I wanted to make a UI change to the back office, I would have to do it on the other repo. So if the issue lives on the CMS one, and we're seeing this already with the core team. Actually, they are looking at issues in CMS and fixing them in the back office repo. So
it's very good though that now with GitHub we can actually move issues from one repository to the other and stuff. So don't be afraid to report it the wrong place. We can always make it work. So report whatever you see.
Yes, report, and as Sebastian mentioned, it will be moved then. So that's fine. And you've mentioned security. That's also on our list for today to discuss, because there was an advisory and there was a rollout of the fix recently. And I think again, I think it's worth mentioning that this addresses the policy and all the long-term supported versions, support phases, and so on. It's all related to that. And for everyone who wants to see how it is actioned, basically that's how it is. Because, for example, Umbraco 11 is not receiving this love and this patch and the fix for that one directly. That was addressed and released. There were a couple there was a patch of the patch released, quickly released, due to some
accidental features released in the 13.3 patch. And that's the issue. So just be wary if you are upgrading there. That I think just by sheer chance, I guess the focus shifted to 14, and the intention was to release these little features and refactors in the next thing. And you don't plan for these security patches, do you? They happen. So it went accidentally, I think. But yeah, I was like, oh, I'm going to go out and patch my sites, and the two things that were broken were custom routes and some OpenID Connect stuff, and the site I was about to patch had custom routes and OpenID Connect in it. So of all the slightly niche features, it would have hurt me. So yeah, 13.3.2 is definitely the one to go. And I think there may still be some chatter about some other issues, but they perhaps have been by the wayside. How does this work going forward with security patches? Well, I'm assuming because 14's got effectively an entirely new API layer, they've got very different security surfaces anyway, haven't they? So
of course, there's a lot of still common things, right? But yeah, there's I think we'll see going forward that a lot more security issues are going to be either for the old stuff or for the new stuff.
Yeah.
Which is very good. We're doing we just wrote the scope of a full penetration test of the new management API as well, so we can get that sorted out here over the summer with an external supplier like we always do. I mean, for incoming security issues that we don't know about, there's a whole process for that, and we adhere to whatever standards for determining severity, and then how quickly we respond to that based on customer SLAs and all of that. So there's a whole we're a real company now, right?
Will we be seeing, do you think we'll be seeing a 14 patch release, not security related, obviously, or we'd hope, but will we be seeing 14 patch releases, or is the plan to go 14.1? Because looking at the issue tracker, everything's being tagged as 14.1, but they're all, UI bugs, little things that are missing. Do you know what the plan is there? Is 14 going to be constantly improved, or is it a wait 6 weeks type thing? You have got Code Garden in the middle there too, so.
Yeah, we have this little conference going on. I honestly don't know if we're planning on shipping a patch or we're just going for 14.1. I think there's definitely arguments for either.
The reason I ask is you mentioned trade-offs before, and there's always trade-offs in all software, right, and in every project. And it's whether those trade-offs are things that you want to fix really quickly and you just had to hit the date, or if it's 6 weeks is a suitable trade-off for sorting the trade-offs.
Yeah, that's exactly the thought that goes into that, right? Should it be a patch, or is this fine to just go in the next minor?
And on that topic, can I ask? I'm sorry, sir, I feel like I'm grilling you here. I'm not trying to. But so is the focus on bug fixing and those sorts of things, or is it on refinement? The reason I say this is it feels like it's an incredibly big technical achievement, and a lot of the focus has been on technical, like, okay, this all works, and maybe less on this looks good, or this is what makes sense to an editor. Someone raised an issue yesterday that said, oh, the tree, you have a list view now, or what they're called collections now. You have a list view, the tree still has the nodes in them, and the reason is it's more performant. Fine, but then the label on the list view still says, and it will not show in the tree. So it's like simple things like that are maybe more focused around not what it does, but the why and the how.
And I mean, especially the last month, probably there's been a lot of focus on getting the stuff in there that would mean a breaking change if it wasn't there. So we can adhere to semantic versioning and not having to push features to 15 if they break. So there's a lot of stuff where we put something in that we think is good enough, but not how we want it to be, and then hopefully we can ship refinements on that in minor versions and not having to wait six months, right? And I think exactly stuff like that is a good example of where we've chosen to focus on actually getting stuff working, and then getting the stuff in there that we can't break.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I personally, I love the 13 the user experience. I think it's rock solid, and can't say that about 14 currently. It's not the friendly CMS that I hoped it would be from a visual perspective, but it'll change, I'm sure, improve. Just it feels like the focus has been, as you say, technical, getting features in over necessarily form, visuals. There was a bit of debate yesterday about the icon colors. So you've removed all of the options we had for icons, but there's justification for it, which is interesting because they're more accessible colors now, and they work in dark modes as well, which is cool. Does 14 have a dark mode?
Yes, experimental, but yes.
Ooh.
So dark mode, and even a high contrast mode where you can so there's
that's nice.
So less icon choice, but in favor of dark mode. I know which one I would choose.
But that's a foundation, and I think this was also mentioned when it was worked on the RFC. Like it's a foundation, and I now get the point on shipping, breaking changes first, and now adjusting and fixing things to make it look and function better. I do remember some of the releases that even I broke in the past when I removed some context menus from the right click. Right click now is not there at all from what I've seen from the comments as well. So there is a lot of things that can be easily improved, but the backbone and the engine is there. So it's more about that. So.
Little things. The the block labels not allowing like proper, interpolated syntax like we've had before is a big one. I think
that was one of the examples of two things really. One thing being this was extremely tied to AngularJS, and you needed to learn how AngularJS worked to use our API, and we really don't want that. Instead, we want something that's extendable and where you can bring your own interpreters and stuff. And that was really the other point, right? That we wanted to get something in that had the foundation to do what we wanted to do, even if we couldn't finish it all the way, because I mean, both for time reasons and also we wanted to have a public discussion about what this should be able to do, right?
Yeah, not shipping the block would have been an unviable alternative to having a label. Right. Yeah.
I think that's a fair trade-off.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I looked at the discussion on that one particularly, and it's a bit of a minefield because it was all very tied to Angular and the syntax, and you had the idea of filters in there, which just isn't a thing anymore.
I don't know if you remember, I tried to work on some pull requests back in the days when it was renaming the type of the block to be added, like create new type of the document, and that was so messed up with the dependencies and the ways how Angular treated this that right now it might be easier, but maybe in a couple steps ahead. So
I put some stuff in there to do like really sensible fallbacks. So if your block label returned an empty value, it would fall back to the type name. But then that got broken in 12 because someone, for another reason, had to refactor how the actual label generation worked, and then it no longer did the fallback properly. And it's been a mess. It's always been a mess.
Yeah. And it was the same with this was one of the examples. The tours was another one. The keyboard shortcuts, a third one, right? Were features that we had to hold on a little bit with because we didn't want to ship one-to-one replacement of what we had because we thought that was too bad and too tied to AngularJS, right?
Tours is not a feature that I will be missing.
So there's a lot of features like that where you could argue that maybe it should be a standalone package that you install if you need it, or but I think that's a whole other discussion, right?
So what we'll be discussing then in 11 days at Code Garden, because the counter is here, the time is passing by. What we can expect from Code Garden? Anything? You said that you already preparing your presentation. That's impressive.
I just this morning handed in my presentation to Annie, who's our graphic designer, to make them look pretty. So hopefully you will see pretty slides from me. Whether any of the content on them makes sense, you'll have to do your judging on that.
Cool. So obviously the conference is in 11 days, 19 hours and 51 minutes. For those who still are not convinced yet to go, there is a full program agenda. Tickets are still on sale. There is an online experience as well. And plenty of really interesting people are going there. A lot of great speakers and talks on various paths, topics and areas of expertise. I don't know what else we should say to convince. Of course, package awards and a lot of other great stuff that is happening
all the pre-active
general awards,
biking and climbing and whatnot. You're arranging some of those, aren't you?
Yes,
yeah,
I run the bike trip on Tuesday morning before the business summit. If you want to sign up, if you want to rent a bike, then you need to sign up by pretty soon. So I'll get you one, Callum, if you want to.
Oh yeah, count me in. I was explaining to a colleague earlier this week who she's attending Kogan for the first time. She's like, "So what's it all about?" And I'm looking forward to the morning runs. I was like, "Oh, you so naive."
Yeah. Now, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on this year. I think I'm personally looking forward to. We have a Microsoft guy coming, I think, on Friday, Henry, talking about some of the AI stuff in Azure. I saw him in a Microsoft event a few months back, and I immediately called Steffi and said, we need this one. This is fun for Code Garden. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that very much. And I mean, there's just a lot of cool talks this year again. I think it's clear to see that there's a lot of people trying out the v14 stuff and sharing their experiences here. So that's very good to see.
I still need to plan the conference attendance. I do remember Polsio or someone made in the past this kind of check boxes next to each talk to plan the agenda for not lose it. And then
I think you can do that in the app now. I think in the app you can bookmark your favorite ones and have a program that only shows the bookmarked ones or something.
Yeah, and that reminds about the talks. Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, it's really full, nicely packed program, and of course there's a lot of great talks there, social events. One
of the things we wanted to do differently this year was to try to give speakers a little bit more time. I think last year we felt like some of the talks were a little
25 minutes or 30 minutes last year.
Yeah,
it's tight. It's really tight as a speaker.
Yeah. So this year we've gone all the way and given people a full hour if they wanted to. So there's some nice talks, and there's even Q&A after that. So you have like 60 minutes of actual presentation. So that's really nice. So there's actually time to have some deep dives into some advanced topics.
That's nice.
And we have umbraCoffee. As always, we have Wednesday and Thursday. Don't worry, Marcin, you don't have to miss the Friday one anymore because it's not happening.
But this time I will be there. I have an afternoon flight, not a morning one at 7 a.m. So end of school is the week after. So this year I'm fine. But yeah, we'll be there, and of course, find us there. We will probably have some goods as usual every year. That's why I'm not taking my running shoes, but I will probably have my half of suitcase packed with something else. Hope I won't get stopped on the security somewhere on the airports. If I won't make the first,
same story every year.
If I won't make the first umbraCoffee, it means that I got stopped finally at the airports. So it looks really cool, and yeah, please reach out to each other. And there's a UBuddy program for everyone who is going there for the first time. So a lot of great stuff, and I feel like right now it's all about talking about counting down to Code Garden, and we will all count down, and we will see what we'll see there. So that's Code Garden, but other community activities were also here. I was a little bit surprised with Umbraco Tuesday yesterday because of my day off, and Thursday because it's usually on Friday, but then I realized something is happening. So Umbraco 14 was released, and by coincidence, there was a huge boost of community participation, and it was great to see people sharing their T-shirts and some rare unique ones as well. And I've seen today that Owen did combine them all on one of the T-shirts. I don't know if he will be wearing it.
I don't think he was going to put that on a T-shirt. But yeah, you made a T-shirt graphic out of all of the Umbraco T-speaks.
Yeah, that was really cool. Some of the legacy coffees there. And yeah, last but not least, two items on our agenda, which is a script article from Richard Jackson about the writing collaborative documentation from Umbraco and Astro. That was something what we mentioned at some point back in the day. Astro was a very thriving topic, I would say, somewhere around Spark, if I do remember correctly, in March, when there was a...
I think it was literally with the advent of the delivery API, whenever that came, was it 12 delivery API? And I think, if I remember, the first person I saw really talking about Astro was Rick. And it's something that we've really embraced internally on our team, and it's something that the rest of the community's done too. And it does feel like it's the best tech for building a headless bar type app, or a single page app, or a static web app now. So yeah, the community's really embraced it. And then and of course, Seb's just said there's an Astro session at Code Garden too. Astro all things. It's becoming the new DXP. Do you hear that?
Astro.
But this is the story really of how Richard and a bunch of community team members came together to get this featured in the docs, because there's all these, I'm going to say, hideous headless CMSs out there, and it doesn't really include Umbraco. And
now they are, which is really cool, because I don't remember which other tools we were discussing, but something with Sebastian we talked about that Umbraco was not a library from Umbraco was not listed because there was no library, because we could do things on our own ways, and someone else was competing between the libraries in other CMS world. And it's always good to be there, because if we are, as an Umbraco developers, we are often participating or observing the all those G2s, reports, and all the quadrants and things that are competing and comparing CMSs between each other. If you go to framework documentation, you would love to see all the possibilities. And I think this was the trigger for Richard to start with this, and now it's there, right? So
it's also it's not depending on hardcore a commercial library. Some of these other ones are commercial, so that really is cool that you can self-host and run it yourself. And equally, Richard put a lot of effort into making sure that the code examples were as specific and as agnostic as possible, so they're not depending on all these random third-party libraries to make working with the APIs smooth. It's like literally just using the fetch API and showing you how you might do that in JavaScript. Really keep it really simple. And I think that's another great addition here. There's no tech overload. It's just nice simple example. But there's other ways of doing it. I know people have done examples of using the Open API spec to go away and generate a client in JavaScript. Perfectly viable approach. But this is a great example. And finally, Umbraco expanding out beyond just our documentation site, let's say. It's elsewhere.
It's very nice.
Yeah. And that's all from the agenda, at least perspective, that we had to discuss today. Is there anything else that you guys want to add to that? Any more call to action, final call to action?
I don't know. A good round of applause for the team and for the community for getting over the line. It was a lot of work by a lot of people. So huge thanks, and looking forward to seeing a lot of people at CodeGarden.
Yeah, that's a good wrap. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Sebastian, for contributions in the chat, and thank you, Philip, for joining us today. I was looking at Sebastian's comment at that time. So yeah, thank you, Philip, for joining us today. Behind the scenes, it was probably the most ahead scheduled episode.
Like 2.5 months ago.
So everything was prepared, everything was fine. So that's cool. And thank you for sharing all of the behind the scenes as well, and insights, and kudos to you as well for managing even it all and making it all happen from your perspective. And looking forward to more. And yeah, we'll see each other soon on CodeGarden, where we'll be streaming umbraCoffee from there. So yeah, that's all for now. Enjoy v14. And see you soon, everyone. Thank you for watching us live.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.